All right, we're diving into Satantango, but we're not here to just walk through the plot. We're going to deconstruct it, get under the hood, and look at the actual mechanics that make this novel tick. Just a heads up, this is a deep dive for people who've already finished the book, so it's going to be full of spoilers. Our goal here is to make a strong argument for one particular way of reading it.
So, let's kick things off with a question that sits right at the heart of the novel. What really causes a person to collapse? Is it plain old despair? Or is it the very thing that promises to save them? The novel seems to suggest that the shape of salvation can be a whole lot crueler than despair itself.
And that leads us to these two phrases. We're going to argue that these two lines are the keys. They unlock the entire novel. One describes the inescapable system the characters are trapped in, and the other describes the only possible response to it.
First, let's talk about the novel's structure. And let's be really clear about this. It's not just some fancy stylistic choice. It's a machine engineered to produce an inescapable, looping cycle of suffering.
You see, the tango here isn't just for atmosphere, it is the structure. Think about the steps of the dance, forward and then back again. That's a perfect map of the community's emotional journey. It's a movement that promises progress but absolutely guarantees a return to the beginning. Look at how this four-step cycle plays out. First, you have the community, stuck in a state of absolute despair. Then, a promise of hope appears. But here's the crucial part. That hope doesn't lead forward. It actually triggers a regression, a return to the start, which leads to the final step. The community collapses back into an even deeper state of despair. That step forward is precisely what ensures they take two steps back.
In that final chapter titled The Circle Closes, well, that's not a conclusion. It's a declaration. It's the novel telling you that there is no beginning and no end here, just the endless, grinding repetition of this very same cycle.
So, we're going to get the state a name: hopeless conservation. It's a system that doesn't resolve despair, it actively preserves it. It keeps the whole cycle going by dangling this cruel illusion of salvation over and over again.
Now, obviously, this dynamic isn't just about a fictional village. It reflects a much broader human tendency, right? It's about how we, as social groups, rally around these grand narratives of salvation and connection, often at the very real cost of our own individual judgment.
And this leads us to a pretty uncomfortable question we need to ask ourselves. Why is it that the moment we feel that security of being part of a group, of belonging to a story, we're so willing to just surrender our own critical thinking?
Okay, so that's the system. Now let's move on to the second piece of the puzzle, the individual's response to this inescapable machine.
Now, here's our big argument. The true protagonist of Satantango is the doctor. Not because of what he does, but because his gaze is the center of the story. His role isn't to act, it's to be the ultimate, unflinching observer of everything that's happening.
And the main thing his gaze locks onto is the cobweb. It's such a perfect metaphor. The web constantly reappears, even if it gets cleared away. But the spider, the source, the cause, is never found. All you ever see is the effect, the web, just relentlessly accumulating.
We can define this as structural evil. It's a kind of harm where the outcome is tangible, it's suffocating, but the origin is diffuse or anonymous, or just completely invisible.
And this presents a massive problem, not just for the doctor, but for us, too. How are you supposed to confront an evil when you can't even identify its source? How do you fight an enemy you can't see?
To understand the doctor's really unique response, let's borrow a concept from physics. There's this idea that the very act of measurement, of observation, can actually change the state of the thing you're looking at.
So the doctor chooses not to clean the cobwebs. He doesn't intervene. Any intervention would be an act of measurement that would change the state of the world he's trying to understand. Instead, he simply watches. His goal isn't to fix the evil, but to understand it and record it exactly as it is.
This dance is what we're calling unmeasured observation. It's the act of watching without measuring, of witnessing without intervening. It's about bearing witness to the truth of the system without becoming another cog in its mechanism.
And this is the really profound takeaway. The artistic power to depict the world's deepest evils doesn't come from trying to fight them. It emerges from this detached, precise, almost cold act of documentation.
Okay, let's bring these two core ideas together.
So you have hopeless conservation on one side, that's the system, the tragic loop that traps the community. And on the other, you have unmeasured observation, that's the response.
It's the intellectual and artistic stance you have to take to even comprehend that loop without getting sucked into it. The doctor's detached gaze is what allows us, the readers, to see the trap for what it is. Which leaves us with one final lingering question. Even when we know it's a trap, when we can see the cobweb forming right in front of us, why do we still find ourselves relying on that promise of salvation? Why is it still so seductive?
If you decide to go back and reread the novel, I'll leave you with this one thought. Pay attention to the precise moments when you, the reader, feel the strongest impulse to intervene, to clean the cobweb, to fix things. Because it's in that impulse, that's where you'll find the book's true gripping power.